Okay everyone, so in this next lesson, let's try to build a new project. And I've already created a new link here that will be a nav link, nav item. And I added a link to this calculator folder that I've created that will be containing the calculator.php. And I just want to practice some ways on how we can try to access PHP code while we're working with two PHP files here. So we will be producing results.php that will be producing the output for our calculator.php here. So let's first start to go and set up our calculator.php here, and let me just convert that to HTML first because I want to work with, let's say, doc type here. So that will be easy for us to just go and work with this. So calculator, simple calculator exercise that we'll be doing for this session. And now that I have all of the necessary items here, I'm just going to rename this to .php file. And let's add some things that we would need for us to be able to work with this. So let's work with the markup first. And let me just have here div with a class of form. Just minimize that. Let's go add here a h2 that will have the title simple PHP calculator. And then let's have some form element that will have a post method, and our action will be for us to go to that results.php. So we'll talk more about this super global or this HTTP verb that we will be working with as we work on building this form. So this is just going to be the action from where we will be redirected to this results.php. And let's have some label. And the label will be for, so this label will be for num1. To say this is going to be number 1. Let's also have an input element. This input element will have a name reference that will be referencing num1. And let's have a class name attribute here that will be referencing later on for our input element. And we have to give this a value of required. Let's just use a line break here. Now let's just go and copy that. And this is going to be for num2. And of course, we want to change this to num2 also. Let's have in the middle a label for operator. And let's say that this is also going to be required. And this label will have a operator text, and use the select element for us to target that name operator. To say that this is going to be also required, and inside of this we will be having option multiplied by 4. And let's give some operators: plus, minus, division, and let's have also the, or let's say, multiplication and then the division operator. Plus, let's just make sure that we don't make a mistake with the characters. So multiplication and the division. So let's save that. Let's have a line break here. And let's also have here at the bottom the input element for type with the type of submit. Let's give a value attribute of calculate. Let's just check this out on the browser. So let's just check this out here, and let me just go here. Now we do have a simple PHP calculator. We have the h2, and we have this form action, and this is just going to be basically a way for us to go to that results.php that we've created. Currently that's still empty, and we have this method that will be allowing us to utilize HTTP verbs. You can put here either get or post, so we'll talk more about that as we move forward. And we do have the label. We also have the input elements, or the input element that we will be needing. So let's add some bits of styling for this. So let's go here, and I'll just go down here for our calculator styles. So this is just going to be quick. I'm not going to be focusing too much on the aesthetics, but just so that we'll have some sort of a way to see better what we're going to be producing. So I'm just going to set up the form here, and I'm just going to target. I think much better if I put this on top. Then let's set the position to center this. I want the form to be position absolute. Let's have one of the techniques for us to center here. The element will be to use this transform, translate, negative 50%, negative 50%. And let's have a background color of 50E, AFF. Let's have a border of 5 pixels solid, and FF6550. And let's have the border radius of 5%. And let's see. Of course, this is not going to work because we don't have any link yet to the style sheet. So let's just go get a copy. Then just go get this link here. Go to our calculator and make sure that we set up the paths correctly. And let's refresh. We do have that. Let's just adjust some of the padding. Let's give this a little bit of padding, 8% perhaps. And then let's go target the input elements and the select attribute. Let's give it a margin. And let's say I want this to be 5%. See how that will look. And let's also put some, let's target that CSS so that I won't make a mistake with the last name. Just going to copy paste that here. And let's target that CSS input. Let's give it a padding of 13 pixels, font size of 19 pixels, border width of 1 pixels, border color of CC, background color of white, let's have a color for the text, so border style solid, and border radius of 0 pixels. Let's see. And let's also have some back shadow. And let's give it some values, 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 5 pixels, and RGBA 66, 66, and an opacity of 7.75. Let's also have a text shadow, and now let's see. We do have some styling there. Let's have a CSS input focused with the outline, because if we do have here, there's that outline. We want to remove that outline none. Fresh. Now we can see that we do have that values, or we now have a very simple calculator app, and it's responsive. Now if we try to go, and of course there will be no logic yet. If I go put some numbers here, as I mentioned, this action attribute will serve as a way for us to be redirected to this results.php. So if you would see here, if I go and click on calculate, it's redirecting us to that results.php file. So let's just try to work on this file first, just to do some testing. I'm just going to create a function declaration for calculate add, and let's have a num2 variable. We'll be refactoring this later on. And let's have a sum, find the value of num1 plus num2, and let's return the sum, and then let's try to echo out calculate add. Let's just give it a value of 2 and 4 just for testing purposes. Let's just go here. We do get that 6, and it's getting, if I say 5 plus 4, we do get that percent. We do get 9. If I say 5 plus 5, we do get, let me just first save that. And that's where function declarations or custom functions can be really quite handy, especially when you're going to be working on customized logic in your application, as you can see here. Now, one thing that I just want to talk about here, as you can see, we do gain access to the results.php once we click on the submit button that we have here. And I just want to talk about the HTTP verb that we can try to use with the method attribute here. And as you have noticed, if we go back to our results.php here and just refresh this, you will see nothing's on the URL. If we are going to be working with sensitive data like password or information, we wouldn't want other people to see that, especially it being publicly viewable on the URL. So depending on the information that you would want to deal with or the data that you will be dealing with, you might want to utilize the post method over another method, which is going to be the get method. And this get method is going to be allowing us to see the values that we place inside of our input elements in our URL here. So if I go try to refresh this, and we do have 1 and 1 here, if I calculate it now, you would see we are seeing the parameters that we have set, the num1 that has that value of 1, and operator. So we do see here that we do have that operator is assigned the value of a space, and actually that percentage is considered to be as a space, and this is going to be used for URL encoding or percent encoding. And we do have that hexadecimal unit, number 2, and we also have that end num2 is assigned the value of 1. So this is pretty exposed, especially if you're going to be working with passwords or information that are a bit sensitive and confidential. This should not be really showing up on the URL, and that's the reason why we would want to choose post over get in some cases. So again, if I try to refresh that, I go here and refresh. Now it's much more secure, or at least it will not be showing up, or it will not be verbose that will be showing too much information on the URL. So I hope that that gave you an idea on what the post here and the get method is doing. So post is most probably the one that you will be using if we will be working with sensitive data. And if you're going to be using with data that's not that sensitive, we can use that get method. And this %2b is actually an ASCII encoding character for plus sign. So if we try to read through this, again, we have the parameters num1. We're assigning it the value of 1. That's what the user input we've done as an input as the user, and we're passing in and this operator with the value of plus sign, which is going to be %2b in ASCII encoding, and we have that num2 assigned the value of 1. And if I go and again, of course, this is not yet showcasing the actual additional operation that we're doing here, because we are not yet able to access it through the function that we have created inside of our results.php, and we're just doing some testing. And going back here, you would see that num1 is now having that assigned value of 2, which is the one that we placed here. If I said 50, you'll see that's going to be stored on the URL, and it's changing based on the user input. So perhaps that's it for this lesson. For the meantime, we did cover get and post methods. We learned about the action attribute. So in the next lesson, let's try to work on further refactoring our code here so that we can do some calculations using the different operators. So thank you, and see you on our next lesson. Take care.